Welcome to Talk World Radio, a half-hour discussion of politics as if the people mattered. I'm David Swanson. This week on Talk World Radio, we are talking with Harley Lippman, an executive committee member on the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC. He serves by presidential appointment and Senate confirmation as a member of the U.S. Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. He is a board member of the Yale School of Management Board of Advisors and is a member of the Dean's Advisory Board at Columbia University's Graduate School of International and Public Affairs. Harley Lippman, welcome to Talk World Radio.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Maybe we could start with, what is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and what does it do?
It's designed to strengthen the relationship between the United States and Israel.
Well, let me give a slightly longer answer. What AIPAC seems to be to many people, and you tell me if it's right. It seems to be the leading participant in the United States legal bribery system in U.S. elections, putting $126 million into campaigns in the last election cycle, deciding outcomes pretty clearly in some primaries. People like Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush probably might be in Congress, if not for AIPAC, and pushing the agenda of a foreign government, of a foreign indicted war criminal in Benjamin Netanyahu. What have I got right? What have I got wrong?
Well, it's any American can be engaged in civic activities to lobby their government for all kinds of reasons. People lobby for foreign governments all the time for all kinds of things. We believe that this is in America's best interest. It's in Israel's best interest too, that Israel represents an ally that doesn't need American soldiers, that is aligned with America's values, Judeo-Christian values, that is a democracy, that works with the United States militarily and in terms of intelligence to help each other be strong to our adversaries in the world. So, yes, people like to talk about the success of raising money with AIPAC, but keep in mind, Kamala Harris raised, and I heard two different numbers. I heard $1 billion and I heard $1.5 billion. That didn't move the needle. So, so even though AIPAC may raise $100 million, at the end of the day, that just gets your information out there, and it's for the people to understand it and then vote accordingly.
So the system of legalized bribery, in which the camp with the most money usually wins, is okay because sometimes the camp with the most money loses?
No, I don't think it's true that the camp with the most money usually wins. It's actually not true. I follow just governor's races in California. I think you had Meg Whitmore or Whitman. I can't remember her name. She ran for governor. She used to be a CEO. She poured a ton of money in the campaign. She lost. I mean, it's just one of dozens that come to mind. Actually,
but why pour those millions in if it doesn't serve a purpose? Why put those millions of dollars into deciding U.S. elections?
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying it's one factor out of many. It's one factor, but that's the American political system. That's the legal way of working in the American system.
With the Israeli government in it. What does AIPAC disagree with the Israeli government on?
Well, AIPAC does not represent the Israeli government, but it tends to be, it's true, it tends to be very aligned with the Israeli government. A lot of people are critical of that. I think their position is that, it's not for them to evaluate internal decisions within Israel, that their position is to support basically Israel as being a strong ally and America being a strong ally to Israel. So it tends to stay away from controversial issues. Israel, like the United States, is very divided, just similar to the way America is. And if you start focusing on one side or another, you undermine the message. You know, whoever is in leadership in Israel is irrelevant to what Israel as a nation represents. It's like Donald Trump, a great example. There are a lot of people that don't like Donald Trump, but it doesn't mean you don't like America. You know, you have leaders that come and go that have different histories to them, but that usually doesn't define the relationship with the country. Leaders are there for a temporary period of time, and you
So
may like them, you may not like them.
should the US government then be a true friend to the nation of Israel and say, you've got an out of control criminal running the place at the moment? We're going to stop shipping him endless weapons. We're going to suggest adherence to the rule of law as in the interests of the best, wisest future for the nation of Israel? Or should it do whatever the current out of control government of Israel wants?
Well, I would say that one, it doesn't send endless supply of weapons. There are still weapons that Israel has asked for that even under the Trump administration, they're not getting. So it's not an endless supply. But I think America has it easy. All they have to do is no, the Israelis do the fighting and the dying, like in Ukraine. All America is doing is giving the weapons. America is the richest country in the world.
Palestinians are doing most of the dying.
What?
The Palestinians are doing most of the dying.
Well, let's go into that then. You alluded to a few things, and yes, Bibi Netanyahu was indicted. That's a huge miscarriage of justice. I don't, he's indicted. So let's go there. What is he indicted for? I don't remember exactly, but I think it's genocide. So let's discuss that for a minute and see, is genocide taking place, since you're suggesting that by Bibi Netanyahu? Well, there is an expert in the United States called John Spencer who teaches at West Point. He's not Jewish. He's not pro-Israeli. And he has written books and is considered the foremost expert in the world, John Spencer. And his expertise is on urban warfare, exactly what's taken place in Gaza. And he says that modern warfare today, in urban warfare, the ratio of combatants to civilians killed is 1 in 9. So let's believe Hamas when they say 48,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. That's what they say for a moment. And let's believe Israel that says about half of them are terrorist fighters. So if that's true, Israel is doing it at a ratio of more like 1 in 2. So Israel is fighting the war. These are factual matters.
24,000 Israelis have died during this current attack on Gaza?
What?
It's 1 in 2 because 24,000 Israelis have died during the current assault.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. So I'll say it again. Let's believe Hamas, who said 48,000 Palestinians. If I said Israelis, I misspoke. My apologies.
Oh, no, you said Palestinians.
48,000 Palestinians have died in the last year and a half in this conflict. That's what Hamas says.
Right. How is that a ratio of 1 in 2 to something?
Okay, I'll say it again. Israel has, and I said, let's believe their number. If anything, Hamas lies and exaggerates. So I don't know if it's 48,000. It could be dramatically less. They have an interest in exaggerating the number, if anything. But let's believe them for a moment. Hamas says 48,000 Palestinians have died in the war in Gaza. Israel has said of the 48,000, about half are Palestinian terrorists and Hamas fighters. So that leaves it to 20,000 something, right? Whatever the number is. So that's what I'm trying to say. And you have a population in Gaza of over 2 million. What?
But you can't justify murdering 48,000 people by labeling half of them the acceptable type of people to murder. That doesn't make it.
Wait a minute. When you say murder them, wait, I have to say murder them.
Okay, look, you got one expert who works for the U.S. Army, right?
No, let me just say,
case is established by the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, all the mainstream human rights organizations in the world. How are all of them wrong, but this one guy who works for the US Army is right?
Good question, and I'll answer that for you. I think it's because the world applies a double standard to Israel, and that's why the world is largely
Except for the one
anti-Semitic.
guy who works for the US Army. He's the one guy who's
No, he's not the only one. No, no,
Israel.
no. Wait, don't distort. You're distorting what I'm saying. I didn't say he's the only guy. You're saying that. I'm only saying that there is an expert on urban warfare who's neutral, and he has given data to show that if in normal fighting in urban warfare, for every combatant killed, 9 civilians are killed unintentionally. That's the average in urban warfare. Israel is killing, for every combatant they kill, they're killing 1 civilian. It's 1 in 1 or 1 in 2. So I'm saying Israel is fighting the war, showing a great respect for human life, because otherwise their ratio would be 1 in 9 or higher.
But the reason there's a case for genocide is not that they're killing the wrong type of people. The wars that have killed millions of all of the wrong type of people by everyone's definition and been very much one-sided slaughters are almost every big recent war, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and so forth. But in this case, you have documented first-person, public, shameless statements of genocidal intent by numerous top Israeli officials who are now
I need to jump in.
intent on using starvation to kill people. Starvation doesn't discriminate among the right type of people to kill and the wrong.
You mentioned a few things. Let me respond, please. I'd like to respond because I strongly disagree. And you mentioned 2-3 things, so it's hard for me to remember. The first thing is you say, what was the first thing you said? Because you said starvation. One, I want to ask you something. During World War II, German people were starving. Did the United States let in food supplies while they're fighting Germany into Germany? No. While we were fighting Japan in World War II, Japanese civilians were starving. Did we allow food in while we were fighting a war with Japan? No. Israel is fighting a war for its survival. When the people cross the border into Gaza, and by the way, I know people on those.
You can claim it's okay because the U.S. did the same evil thing years ago, but you can't claim it's legal. You can't claim it doesn't violate the Geneva Conventions.
No, it doesn't violate the Geneva Convention. I'm going to tell you why. And this is where a double standard, and I'm hearing candidly, but I'm hearing anti-Semitism. So Israel
You're hearing anti-Semitism? Is there someone in the room with you speaking anti-Semitism?
You are.
How?
I'll answer it. If you let me complete my thought, I'll tell you how. All right. I'm going to tell you why. You don't distinguish between Hamas terrorists, thousands who crossed the border into Israel for no reason, raped and murdered people. I saw the videos, sir. They repeatedly raped women, murdered little children, burned families alive. I've met with those people. I've brought over survivors here to the United States, marching with them in New York City. I've been to Israel at the Nova Music Festival Memorial. I watched the videos. I've met with people who are survivors. If you know about me or look me up or Google me, you'll see all that. This is what Hamas did. They killed, by the way, the Israelis they killed on the border are the most pro-Palestinians of the Israeli population.
But you accuse me of a horrific offense called anti-Semitism because you failed to distinguish murder from criminal justice. The fact that I want those people prosecuted and held accountable and punished, but not murdered, and anyone else who's there, or the label of their group is applied to them unaccountably without any evidence, murdered as well, that does not constitute some hatred against some ancient religious or ethnic group. It's where do you make that leap? I want those criminals prosecuted, and I want Israeli criminals prosecuted.
I'm going to answer it for you. Hamas terrorists are not criminals.
Yes,
they are savage murderers. They represent an ideology. They were elected by the people of Gaza, the same way the Germans elected Hitler.
Human beings are not savages. I'm hearing Nazism. What? I'm hearing Nazism.
Oh, they are worse. The Palestinians who went into Israel, and I'm a family of Holocaust survivors, are worse than the Nazis during the Holocaust.
No, I'm hearing Nazism in your dehumanization of a whole group of people, turning them into savages.
Okay, no, I'm going to tell you why I'm going to tell you why a group of people are savages. So I'm going to tell you why. One, they've been brainwashed to hate Jews. If you look at Palestinian schools in the education system, they teach from children to hate and kill Jews. That's what they teach in the schools. You don't find that in Israeli schools. So when they crossed
Yes,
the border, no, let me tell you, when they crossed the border and raped and murdered for a whole day, they took a 1-year-old child, a 4-year-old child, when the hysterical mother was holding on to them, called the Bibas children, red hair. They took the man called Oved, who's an 84-year-old grandfather. And by the way, do you know what his job was? He would go into Gaza, seek out Palestinians who have cancer, take them to Israeli hospitals to be treated for free. He was kidnapped in Gaza, brought to Gaza, and murdered by Hamas with their own hands. He was a captive. He was an 84-year-old grandfather. This is anti-Semitism as plain as possible. This isn't an occupier.
I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I want them prosecuted and held accountable and punished for their crimes.
Like, you don't defend the Gestapo, don't defend Hamas that went across the border for no grievance at all. By the way,
do you think opposing a genocide has to constitute defending Hamas? Can you imagine opposing a genocide simply because it's genocide and starving people to death is evil, and murdering 24,000 people plus another 24,000 people because that's a good ratio is just perfectly fine?
Well, let me address that. You raised the right question, genocide. So let's explore it for a moment. Is this genocide? You say it is. Let's discuss it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't believe it is. I'm going to tell you the reasons why. Number one, we all agree Israel is a very powerful military entity, and they could wipe out all the Palestinians in Gaza overnight. So if they are really trying to commit genocide, they are doing the worst job in the annals of mankind. It's a year and a half later, and the birth rate in Gaza has slightly gone up, mostly because of the high birth rate. So if they're committing genocide, they're the most incompetent nation in the world to do it, because they're not doing it. Second, when you come into another country, just reverse it. If the Sonoma cartel came into America and kidnapped high school students, babies from schools, grandparents, girls, 19-year-old girls hiding under their bed, kidnapped them, brought them into Gaza, brought in hundreds of Americans, into Mexico. I'm making an analogy with a Sonoma cartel.
If the United States government lose its ever-loving mind and commit horrific crimes as it did on 9/11, but that's not the excuse for Israel to proclaim this is our 9/11, so we can commit horrific crimes. The definition of genocide includes the words in whole or in part. When you pretend that it only says in whole, you are misrepresenting the definition of genocide.
By the way, you're right. Let me tell you, you're right. The definition of genocide does say whole or in part, and you're correct about that. So let's take it a step further then. When you kidnap innocent civilians who did nothing to you, and you are hiding them, and you are torturing them and murdering them, you expose your population, meaning Hamas is responsible for those innocent Palestinians being killed. Yes, there are many.
Killing them or not. The people killing them are not responsible.
Let me tell you why. No, they're not. When you even the Geneva Convention, I'll answer.
You understand is the definition of lawlessness. We get to kill people without being responsible for killing people.
No, it's called no. When a country is attacked with an exterminationist view of the enemy, Hamas's view, it says it in their charter, sir. All you have to do is read it. Don't act like you don't know anything. The Hamas charter is to kill every man, woman, and child in Israel. That's genocide. That's extermination. To the extent
that they do it, they are guilty of horrific crimes. To the extent that Israel does the exact same thing to Palestinians,
no, Israel is defending itself in a war.
Israel is defending Hamas,
an apartheid. No, let me answer it for you. Wait, no, I'm going to answer it for you. Every single Palestinian civilian could fit in those tunnels. Those tunnels are a genius of engineering. They're bigger than the New York subway system. 2 million people could fit into those tunnels. They do not want to protect their people. Hamas cannot defeat Israel militarily. They don't have tanks and F-35 planes. Their strategy is to use their people.
So it's
They want
okay to kill
Israel.
people who have a government that doesn't care about them. That's most of the world. That's most of the whole. That's what you're authorizing here. Why is it okay to have a state, to have a nation that privileges one group of people over others in the first place? Why is it all right to have a state that all the mainstream human rights groups, including in Israel, define as an apartheid state? Why is that something worthy?
I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, that's a great question, sir. Where do you live? Where do you live?
That's not an answer at all.
No, where do you live in America? Give me a city.
Why?
A state. Give me a state.
Why?
Why don't you not tell me? Is that this? I live in Miami. Where do you live?
I live in a state and a country guilty of all sorts of horrific crimes.
Okay, so you're living on, sir, you're living on Indian land. You're an occupier. So using that language, can people go into your home and rape your wife and murder your children? You're an occupier. You're living on Indian land. You're living on Indian land. You're an occupier. So according to your logic, then what Hamas did to Israel, American Indians, and you say, is it okay for society to have two classes? You think American Indians are equal classes? You're an American. I don't see you championing the American Indian, but you'll attack the Jew, but you'll attack the Israeli.
You don't see me champion the American Indian? Where have you been?
If you are, then you're not. Then if that's the case, I don't know you. If that's the case,
obviously you do not.
I don't.
Obviously you
so I take that back.
How do the sins of the U.S. government of centuries and decades and current days gone by justify the horrors of the Israeli government?
It doesn't. But what it does do, it doesn't. What it does do, it shows a double standard. Like, let me give you an example. In Syria, the Syrian government murdered 600,000 Sunni Muslims in the civil war 8 years ago. 600,000. And when the Syrian army went into a Sunni village, they didn't rape just the women, they raped the men. Where were the college demonstrations? Where were people like you on radio talking about the genocide in Syria? We didn't hear of you. There weren't demonstrations. Why?
Have you looked at the website of the show you're speaking on?
Not Jews involved. No, you know why? Arabs
have not looked at this radio show. You have never listened to a single episode of this radio show. You're just demonstrating irrelevant ignorance on a point that doesn't answer the question. Of course, I object to violence by all parties in all places, including in Syria, and have done so vociferously. It doesn't justify an apartheid state.
It doesn't. And by the way, if you have spoken up as much with the same level of intensity as you're speaking up against Israel, then you don't have a double standard, and I withdraw my comment.
But thank you. Do you think there should be such things permitted on college campuses? Do you think Yale and Columbia should allow freedom of press and assembly?
By the way, I'm on the board of both Yale and Columbia's.
Indeed, why I asked you the question. Do you think maybe they should allow freedom of speech and assembly even for people who oppose? And
by the way, what you don't know about me is we don't know about each other. And
no, you don't answer questions.
No, I'm answering for you, which is important context. I pay for every year a Palestinian student to go to Yale Business School every year. Only this year I stopped.
Some of them are your best friends.
I paid out of my own pocket. I'm an entrepreneur. I built a business on my own. No one ever helped me. I came from poor.
You found a good background.
And the reason why I say that is I did it because I care about all people and I care about Palestinian people. The reason why I'm saying that to you is the danger is you could stereotype me and you're trying to pigeonhole me and like supporting genocide. I don't support genocide on anybody, but I think it's just like World War II.
You don't support an arms embargo. I don't care so much about your ideology as your actions, and you're part of an organization.
I think Israel is trying to defend
the U.S. government.
I'm going to answer it to you, but I'm going to answer your question. The Israeli government was attacked. It's an act of warfare, savagery to kill every man, woman, and child. Israel, in its self-defense, is attacking Hamas. Now, Hamas hides among civilians. So sadly, unfortunately, tragically, many innocent Palestinians die when Israel is trying to target Hamas. Hamas should not hide among civilians. If they cared about the civilians, they would hide in the tunnels and not hide among civilians. So they would have protected. Do you know there's not
If
one
the whole
area
population would go live underground, that would be the only appropriate behavior.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not a military expert. I don't know if the whole population or part of it. I'm just saying that Hamas has the means to protect their own people, Palestinian civilians. They don't do it because their strategy is to use their people so that Israel kills them unintentionally, and it gets the world, brilliant strategy. It's working, and it gets the world up in arms, like people like you, to be critical of Israel, to accuse it of genocide. You're falling in the trap of Hamas's strategy and propaganda, and it's a brilliant strategy and has worked very well. It has united people around the world against Israel, partly due to anti-Semitism and a double standard, and partly because of social media. When you see every night innocent Palestinians being killed, you get angry. It's understandable. I don't like it. I speak to Israelis. They don't like it.
But you
And by the
support
way,
policies.
and
I'm
also I
sorry,
want to
you
tell
can't
you,
bomb a country and declare which deaths are intentional and which are unintentional, even if it is good Judeo-Christian values, which you think this country should also throw out the separation of church and state and go in for. It's not acceptable. It's not legal. It's not moral. And it's not an excuse to say half or 3/4 or 10% or any chunk of the people are unintentional. So it's not our responsibility. If you're dropping the bombs are killing the people, you're responsible. So is the government providing the bombs, the US government, which you, on behalf of the Israeli government, are bribing to continue to do so.
okay, if you say that to Arab American groups that lobby, Black American groups, other groups, then it's okay. I haven't watched your program. If you don't say that about other groups, you're picking on Jews, because every organization in America has a right to lobby their government. It's called freedom of speech. It's called democracy.
Of an idiotic sort of bigotry based on if you're a bigot, then you're a bigot. It's absolute nonsense.
I just want to say, again, I think we have a complete different view. Hamas,
yes, I agree. I agree with something.
Yeah, no, but on August 6th,
we got 1 minute.
On August 6th, there wasn't one Jew in Gaza. Not one Jew. Israel left that country. Even dead Jews were taken out of Gaza and reburied in Israel. There wasn't one Jew in Gaza. That Hamas crossed the border into Israel, attacked poor communities in Israel, tortured and raped them. Israel, and Hamas is a powerful force. Israel went to attack Hamas back. Okay. Yes, sadly.
I know you're going to just go on talking about October 7th for the next hour, but we have to end the program. So thank you, Harley Lippman from AIPAC, for coming on Talk World Radio.
Right. I hope you'll have me back again.
This is Talk World Radio. I'm David Swanson. Take action at rootsaction.org. Help end war at worldbeyondwar.org. Read or listen to today's Peace Almanac entry at peacealmanac.org. All past shows can be heard at talkworldradio.org. Talk World Radio is produced in Charlottesville, Virginia, and syndicated by Pacifica Network. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way.